Well, it began in the very beginning of the course, within week 1, when he gave us a taste of his beliefs when he said that all religions came from the same source, human imagination. Near the end, where week 11, 12, 13, and 14, sure, I was given zeros.
And she simply was being belittled because this person is a militant atheist intent on destroying her faith.
You get a monkey fossil, you beat a guy to death with it. Hello?
Purely anti-poop.
I don't like most of these people.
So, Phoebe, how drunk are you?
Pretty good.
And welcome to Atheist Airwaves, episode number 86. I'm Christian Ferris.
I'm Amanda Stevens.
I'm Vance Fisher.
And I'm Luce Lum.
We record live every Tuesday at 7:30 Central on Ustream.tv, so please join us in the chat room and join the other fine degenerates that we collect for each show. Our intro audio this week is 16-year-old Grace Lewis, who didn't do so well in an upper-level humanities class she was taking at Polk State College, which she says was due to her refusal to condemn Christianity in class assignments and because her professor was a atheist meanie. She got a 0 on each of her last 4 assignments because her professor, Lance Russum, is an anti-theist who won't let you pass unless you agree with his godless Marxist agenda. And I always hate stories like this because it's kind of a struggle for me to just make sure that I'm not being completely biased and to put my, if this guy was a Christian who was pushing a Christian agenda, how would I feel about it? How did you guys feel about this story?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. If for instance, I try to put myself in that same position. If someone was asking a question about the Bible and they said, don't give me what you believe or don't believe about the Bible. What happened in this case? Was Noah, was he actually saving the animals or whatever story you're talking about? Did Moses do this? Did he get the people from Israel or Egypt? Did he get them out? And don't tell me what you believe or don't believe about the Bible. Just refer to the Bible. And in this case, I think he's saying, refer to the text that I'm giving you. What was the case happening here? Looking at it in the humanistic, or what does he teach us? Humanities, right?
Well, he's also a humanist, and a lot of his class assignments were based around humanism.
Because the class was a humanities class.
Yeah. But which is different than humanism.
Right.
And he apparently is not. It sounds like he's not an atheist. Because he apparently disses on atheism too during his class. He's a Marxist. He's a feminist. He's a
all the ists.
Yeah.
I think part of it, though, is a critical thinking component.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you have to be able to step outside your comfort zone. You have to be able to step outside your box and look at things in a different light, which I think is a lot of, at least the first assignment seemed to me. Yeah. It was kind of like, okay, now, I don't want you to tell me about why Christianity is great now.
Right.
I want you to tell me how they treated women in, the Middle Ages.
Sure.
And yeah.
And I felt like, did anyone else read any of her assignments? Because they released her papers. Did anyone else read any of it?
I didn't read the papers that she wrote, but I read the questions.
They were kind of, so all kinds of no true Scotsman arguments that, these weren't really Christians. They were papists who had it wrong. They were pagans who were brought into the religion and they corrupted what Jesus' teachings were. Yeah. So she was more of an apologist than analyzing the information she was given. She was trying to defend Christianity in general. I just feel like all of her papers were passive aggressive and just
I don't like this assignment.
Yeah.
So here is how I am telling you that I don't like this assignment.
I don't like hearing that Christians were mean to women at any point now or in the past, and so I'm going to be really, really obtuse. And I feel like one of the central tenets for being successful in college is don't piss off your professor.
Yeah, basically do what your professor wants. Even if you fucking hate the guy and all that he stands for, just write the paper that he's gonna like.
Yeah.
You know what I think about this, whole. Okay, there's a problem in education in general. Well, there are a lot of problems, but I see here, and I've seen it in other stories, kind of unrelated stories coming up all the time where, a student in cahoots with her parents decides that they can muscle their way into the system where the rules have already been made. It's like, this is the professor, this is his class, this is his syllabus, and he lines out exactly what type of questions he's going to ask you. And then you are too obtuse to be able to fall in line with, what's already been laid out, or you think you're too special or whatever. And so instead of just sort of like submitting to the system that you signed up for, you go like, but this, he's totally not fair because he doesn't like me because I'm not,
Right.
I don't agree with what he's trying to say. But, it's a critical thinking issue. Just like you said, it's, here's some reading, here's some questions based only on the reading, and maybe some lecture that I gave you. And now spout back to me the answers that I've asked.
You know what would
It's
have been
not that hard.
Yeah, what even would have been more fun is if she could have found, like, historical women who actually did make a difference in the medieval church. They existed. Like, be like, okay, for the most part, I will agree that Christianity treated women in the Middle Ages pretty shitty. But hey, here's this instance
some
of blah, blah,
exceptions.
blah,
Yeah.
who did blah, blah, blah. And
Right.
she could have, I think, found a way to turn it around. That's kind of what I do.
Yeah, and I gotta say two things. One is that I was shocked that this level of writing, because these essays were really well written, they're really well documented. She's got bibliographies and footnotes out the wazoo. She did a really great job in terms of
Citing her work.
yeah, well, and just her writing style. And I've been in South Texas for so long, and
You get blown away when people can write.
I really can, especially a 16-year-old. I mean, she
Totally.
blows away. She blows away most of the students that I talk to down here in South Texas, and she's 16.
Right.
So, assuming she wrote it herself, it's
Right.
pretty good writing. But the other thing that she keeps doing is she's just being passive aggressive. She's like, "Oh, you said to determine what this is in terms of a humanist framework, but what does humanism mean?" And blah blah. She goes on for 2 pages about how humanism. It's like, or you didn't really define the term Christian mythos, and what does that really mean? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure your professor probably gave you a working definition for that during the class.
Right.
So just use that definition and use your critical thinking skills. I think that if I were in that situation and it was a Christian professor who was making me write stuff about how great Christianity was or is, that I could make a cogent point without being passive aggressive, without using logical fallacies. I think that I could, because one of the assignments, she says, I can't even answer this question because whatever. And I'm like,
You asked a question that's not answerable. She said that
Yeah.
a couple times.
Yeah.
The question's wrong.
yeah. And it's like, if you don't answer the question that your professor has given to you, you're going to fail.
And what kind of fucking hubris do you have as a 16-year-old to go to your college professor and go like, no one can answer that question?
Well, the very interesting thing I got was he's got rules at the beginning. It says, don't tell me about what you personally believe. And he goes through all these steps because he's had this before. He's gone through this many times. And he's setting the rules up to begin with. Said, don't do this. What you're about to do is exactly what she did. I mean, to the T.
Totally.
I mean,
So one last, or I don't know, it doesn't have to be the last one, but the last thing I have to say about it is I had a really hard time kind of flipping it around, saying, what if it were from a Christian perspective or kind of like a pro-Christian perspective? I could not get away from my own bias enough to do that. So instead I decided, okay, what if it were a history class instead of something related to, Christianity stuff? And it was like a question about some historical reading that maybe had someone's opinion inserted into it. And would I be able to do this, this assignment, or, if the student had done a similar thing, would I think that she did it wrong? And looking at it that way, instead of the Christian versus atheist position, I'm yet again on the side of the chick just did it wrong. So anyway, just a point on me not being able to get out of my own bias enough.
Right. So this girl's parents contacted the dean. The dean was like, things look okay to me. And so then, of course, they got in touch with the Liberty Institute because, of course, they're going to get those assholes involved. And Liberty Institute is a bunch of Christian Nazis or whatever. So they sent off a letter to the school saying, we're going to sue you because you suck and you're discriminating and blah, blah, blah. And I swear this college's lawyers were channeling Andrew Seidel's badassness because the letter they wrote back was awesome. I want to read a little part of it. They said, quote, the overall fallacy of your position rests singly on the premise that an instructor should not require a student to consider, discuss, or present arguments that are contrary to his or her personal beliefs. Your only substantive allegation with a connection to the college is that the professor allegedly discriminated against your student when he gave her zeros on 4 essay assignments. Your entire letter, which is based on this hollow and indefensible allegation, legally fails to establish any claim against either the college or its employee.
Bam.
Bam.
Learn some critical thinking.
Right. So I think that personally, if I had a Christian professor, even if he had an agenda, I could operate in that class, and I think I could gain something of note in that class. And I think there is value in being exposed to ideas that are counter to what your personal philosophy are.
Yes, that is my biggest problem with a whole lot of Christians right now. It's like, no, you can't teach my precious baby about evolution or Muslims, or they have to be in this like tiny Christian bubble where nothing.
Don't tell them about the tinkle box or the hoo-hoo dilling.
That's right. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's sad.
Here's the other thing that I want to introduce, because after they got this letter, the college rescinded her 4 zeros and gave her actual grades. And as I understand it, they gave her an A in the class.
I hate that.
So either they are talking a good game and collapsing privately, or what I think is more likely, that this professor, she got under his skin and he gave her some unfair grades. Because I think that some of her essays, like I said, they were very well written. And while I thought she did a shitty job, she didn't do a zero job.
Right.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I think, and one of the things that the parents said was that he spent 3 hours with her on the phone. What professor spends 3 hours on the phone with a student?
That's amazing.
I thought about that too. He's obviously got a little bit of a dog in that fight, emotionally.
Yeah. And I mean, Liberty Institute was like posting, they screen capped a whole bunch of anti-theist stuff that he posted to his Facebook page before he took it down.
I saw that.
And so I think there's a little bit of fault on both sides.
Yeah.
I think she definitely did not deserve an A based on what I read that she did, but she also did not deserve to fail that class. And so I hope that both parties have learned a valuable lesson. I did, just as a last note, I went to ratemyprofessor.com just to read what students have said about him. And he has reviews going back 6 years. And overall, his students like him. And they gave him an overall, I think his overall, this is Lance Russum, if you want to go look. I think they gave him an A- total over his entire career.
That's pretty good.
So I pulled a couple of the comments just so you can kind of get a better sense of what this guy was doing. Like I said, A-, so the good far outweighed the bad. And I'm going to kind of give it a 1-to-1 good and bad thing here. So just keep in mind that it's not that way. It's overwhelmingly good for him. So on the good side, this student said, Professor LJ is the master at getting you to question everything you believe in to be true. He also challenges you to defend those beliefs, which sounds good.
That's what a professor should do.
A review in 2011 said, if you believe in God or you don't like to argue, you should probably take another professor. I don't believe in God, but I do like to argue, so I think I would like this guy. Another student wrote, this professor is great. I took the 12-week course online. It's an easy class if you did the assignments. Make sure that you write the required amount of sentences. If you do not, you will get an F. I was very enlightened by the course. Another student wrote, he spent our first 3-hour class belittling religions and even atheism while glorifying his beliefs. He said we should discuss. He just wants us to adopt his contradicting ideas as he shuts down our own. He graded too harshly for someone who doesn't teach honors. He was not helpful and didn't take the time to get to know his students.
I hear the hum.
I don't know where,
Ghost hum.
I don't know where it's coming
But
from.
it stopped.
Okay, good.
Whatever it was.
Okay, the last student said, Professor LJ is one of my favorite professors, even though we never seem to agree on anything. He will test your will and make you speak out about what you believe in. Great class. So I think that, to me, just says he's really just interested in challenging what you think and getting you to think critically. And I think that's a good thing. Even if and the course syllabus, the student and the professor himself all said, I will frequently be a devil's advocate in class. He just wants you to step outside of your comfort zone. He wants you to learn critical thinking skills by going up against someone who may not believe what they're saying, but will make you defend what you believe.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would want like every single one of my college courses to be like that, but you definitely, especially as a young person, you should definitely go through some kind of gauntlet like that.
And that is a really good point to make, is that she is young. She's 16 years old, taking an upper level humanities class. One of the objections they had was that he showed the Michelangelo penis.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah. And, the dean was saying, when you enrolled in this class, you signed this thing that said,
They were warned.
Yeah,
She was warned.
I agree that I understand that the class is designed for students 18 years of age or above, and it's not going to be changed for me, and that's okay. And so maybe maybe college, she's not ready for college yet. Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe
It seems like they want her in a bubble.
Yeah. And so maybe she needs to stay home for now. She seems very smart, just based on her writing, but she's in this Christian bubble, and maybe she needs to stay there for a while until she can either break out herself or her parents let her go. Okay, so let's get on to news. Have you guys ever wondered why people hate atheists so much?
Not really.
So many reasons.
Is it because we're smug, self-satisfied, arrogant intellectuals who actually have all the answers? Because
That's Ferris's personal belief. The smugness wafting.
a little bit. New research suggests that it might actually be because believers are terrified of dying and atheists remind them that they're going to do exactly that. Research published last month in the peer-reviewed journal Social, Psychological, and Personality Science revealed the results of 2 experiments they did on anti-atheist sentiments. Before I talk about the experiments, though, I wanted to just read their hypothesis, the very first part of their... I just love terror management theory as a thing. I love the hell out of that. Okay, so let me read this real quick. Terror management theory posits that the uniquely human awareness of death gives rise to potentially paralyzing terror that is assuaged by embracing cultural worldviews that provide a sense that one is a valuable participant in a meaningful universe. We propose that pervasive and pronounced anti-atheist prejudices stem in part from the existential threat posed by conflicting worldview beliefs. So basically, they're saying that religions by and large help mitigate the terror that people feel at the prospect of their own deaths, and that running into people who don't share their worldview belief that mitigates that terror terrified.
and who sort of joyfully and unabashedly rejoice in the knowledge that there is no afterlife.
Right.
Yeah.
That actually adds
Deal.
value to your life, that you're going to die and it's going to be the end.
Yeah.
That really what do people does anyone believe this as a thing?
That
What are we believing?
That one of the sources of anti-atheist sentiment is a fear of death.
yeah,
Yeah.
I buy it. I had some issues with kind of the results of the study.
Okay.
But I buy the general tenet that many people are not comfortable with the reminder of the finality of death.
Yeah.
And when you're like, hey man, it's no big deal.
Yeah, everybody does it.
Some people have a hard time being okay with that.
Yeah.
Mostly children.
Mostly older people.
I think both.
like
Yeah.
like the police chief died this week, and it was very sad.
Really?
But,
I
like,
hadn't heard.
The like
Corpus Christi.
Yes,
police
the
chief,
Corpus
yeah.
Christi police chief died this week. It was very sad, but the like Lollapalooza of grief that followed, I was just like, what's going on? What am I missing?
I will tell you, Corpus Christi, more than anywhere that I have ever lived, loves their dead celebrities.
True.
Selena.
Yeah, or I mean, just anybody. Like you see, I live near Ocean Drive, and you see,
The,
there's
the death parade.
Yeah, there's a huge cemetery there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
man, traffic will stop for like an hour so that the dead people can parade by.
Yeah.
And everyone goes, "Oh, they're in a better place, and God called them home," and you know,
he's just
and
dead.
then stuff.
Yeah,
and-
like the whole thing. They had the funeral. They had the funeral at like American Bank Center.
Yeah.
So that everybody in town could go. I guess
That was the first funeral. There had to be
They're,
another one.
they're
Yes,
still
there are, like,
parading
3
this poor
funerals.
man's body around.
That was
The entire state of Texas.
No,
Yeah.
the nation. He's being flown to Chicago next.
Yes,
not.
yes, he's being buried in Chicago.
What?
Yes, that's where he's from. But okay, so they had the funeral at the
I feel
American
so
Bank
bad
Center.
for his wife and kids. Oh
I
my
know.
God.
I'm not making light of the situation. I was just flabbergasted by the Lollapalooza of grief, because it was funeral at American Bank Center, then they drove all the way down Ocean Drive, got on the expressway, closed the expressway, and drove him back across town. And I was just like, why are we parading a corpse? Like, I get it, and it's sad, but I...
3 words. Weekend at Bernie's. Okay. Let's, I think
All right,
I think we've
yeah.
peaked out on the ghoulish meter, but the last couple of months when we've been talking to Christians at Art Walk at our table, universally the thing that they say is you're going to be sorry when you're dead. And they
I
go
think I'm just gonna be dead when I'm dead.
right, but I
Yeah.
mean, it makes a lot of sense to me because they are overly concerned with what will happen to you when you die.
Okay, so I'm gonna say something that is totally unfounded. Just
No.
opinions off the top of my head here, but I feel like in our culture, meaning the culture of the town that we live in, and it's probably not just our town, but maybe a combination of Catholic stuff, a combination of living in a a hopeless kind of life in general.
Hold on.
Oh,
hold
sure,
on.
sure.
What did you do, Vance?
Sorry.
I don't know. I think it was Mitt Romney.
He got an ad.
I don't know why it's
So
on.
back up a little bit so I can edit
So,
that.
okay.
Wait. Let me stop talking first so that I can edit that back together.
Okay. So the culture that we live in, I think that the promise of an afterlife wherein you are rewarded is consolation for living a shitty fucking life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, and a lot of people around here live a shitty fucking life.
yeah.
But it's okay because Jesus loves me and I'm gonna do fine.
Sorry.
Hold on.
I'm closing it.
No, as soon fix it real quick. Fix it real quick, and then she can keep going.
I don't know why it's playing here.
There
What
was
is
an
it?
ad on that Raw story that you
I
were
don't know how I
on.
got closed on, yeah.
I think he clicked one of the stories on the show sheet, and there was a video ad.
This is cool. We can edit all this out. So just
We're watching porn.
fix your shit, right? I'll put on the Japanese girls making sex noises thing again. That never gets old.
Even if I turn the volume down here.
Yeah,
For
that's
you.
it. Actually, it's horrible, but okay. Are you good?
I think so. I hope so.
I don't know what I was talking about. Just, whatever. That everybody is, you need that promise of an awesome afterlife to make up for the fact that you're living a shitty life right now. And it's sort of, if you want to get into the whole coercive nature of religion in general, like the people in power that want to keep you oppressed, the way that you will submit to whatever kind of oppression or exploitation that you're being submitted to by the powers that be, are that you're going to have an awesome afterlife down the road, know? And I think people have really, really bought into that.
Yeah.
And so
I think there's two things, because I think one is the people who are just afraid of being dead, and they don't want it to be. They can't deal with the end of themselves. So that's one. But the other one is exactly what you're talking about, which is they need this sense of fairness, that Hitler is not just as dead as I'm gonna be when I'm gone, because I'm not as bad as that guy. And Ben Affleck has this great job where they let him be Batman for God knows what reason, but and I have this crappy life where I'm living under an overpass, and people are throwing bottles at me, and so this all has to even out in the end. Well, it doesn't.
Yeah.
right,
Sorry.
there's not this ultimate fairness, and furthermore, like you can't, like no one's gonna take care of you except for you, and a lot of people don't. Are not comfortable with that either. And it's from a sense of disempowerment, So these people see, maybe it is that they see atheists as like sort of uppity and overly empowered to be able to laugh in the face of this like threat of hell or promise of heaven. Right?
Total extinction.
Or
And we're
just-
like, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, or at least it's just the fucking way it is. Maybe it sucks, it still sucks.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Like, if I lived forever, I could do amazing shit, but I'm not gonna live forever,
Right.
so I should just get on this shit now.
Yeah, and I totally wish I could see my dead loved ones, again sometime, but that's not gonna fucking happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I would like to be able to have more time. I would not like infinite time. I would like to see us colonize the galaxy, the solar system even. I would like, if I could even have 500 years, that'd be awesome.
Really?
Infinite years, I don't want.
I agree. Infinite
500 years sounds super painful on my body.
Well, okay, but that we'll have to,
Work out the details.
500 years of like middle age.
Yes. Yes.
And then like the last 100 you get old or
I want to
something.
be like the face of Poe, that's Doctor Who. But
That
I
would be
don't.
awesome.
I don't want that. So let me describe the experiments briefly, and then you said you had some problems with them, so please feel free to jump in. So they did 2 experiments. In the first one, the subjects in the experimental group were asked to describe their thoughts on their own death and to describe what would physically happen to them after death. The control group were asked questions about intense physical pain. And then they were asked how they felt about Quakers, and some of them were asked how they felt about atheists. There was no significant difference between how the pain group felt about Quakers versus the death group. But when they were asked about atheists, there was a dramatic drop in how the people who were just talking about death felt about atheists compared to the pain group. There was also a dramatic increase in attempts of the death group to socially distance themselves from atheists, and they reported feeling much greater distrust of atheists. And none of those things changed for the Quakers.
Right.
So that is kind of disturbing. I mean, there's really nothing you can do about that, right?
Yeah, but I think that's like, I feel like, okay, what kind of feelings do you have when you think about a Quaker, right? You think about fucking hugs and oatmeal.
I think of oatmeal, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, nobody's pissed. There's not a militant Quaker.
But at
You
the
know?
same time, I mean, I think there's something to this because I don't think that would have changed if they had used Catholics or.
Oh, I think it would have.
You think that would have that whether you were thinking about pain or death would have changed with the Catholics?
Catholicism is all about pain and death.
Yeah, but I mean they're not going to trigger thoughts of death for people any more than Quakers are in my mind. I don't know.
I mean, so that's what I'm saying. Then my main issue with this study is, I mean, but it's an issue I have with a lot of these psychological studies where people are self-reporting their feelings about stuff. And it's so hard to pin down. It's very preliminary and it's one study. I think it's telling though. I do. People hate, what is it? The atheists are just as untrustworthy as rapists. Mm-hmm. Now, if that's not clickbait, I don't know what is.
But no, that's an actual study. Actually, I think atheists ranked below rapists in that study. This is a study from like 2010, 2009, something like that. This is an older study, but yeah, they found that we are the most distrusted minority out there.
I mean, it was all over the news today that, like, you know, more people than ever are self-avowed non-believers or whatever.
Non-affiliated.
Nuns. Yep.
Non-affiliated.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know. I just.
All right, so let me explain the second
ahead,
experiment, just so that everyone is clear about what they did. In the second one, there were three groups. One was directed to think about atheism, one about their own death, and one about pain. Then they did an analysis of the subject's death thought accessibility, which is just kind of like, you know, how much are they thinking about their own death while you're talking to them or whatever. And they found that the subjects were more likely to think about death after thinking about atheists than even after thinking about death. I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, atheists make theists think about death more than death makes them think about death.
Because they are preoccupied with what's going to happen to you.
Mm-hmm. Was it all theists in the study?
So here's a really interesting thing about the population of the subjects. There were atheists were overrepresented. I want to say like 15% of the people in the study were atheists. They took all of their data out. So everyone they talked about was a theist of some kind. Christians were slightly underrepresented. Like we're like 60 something percent. Buddhists and Muslims were way overrepresented, like 6% and like 7% or something like that.
Huh. Why did they take the atheists out?
Because they didn't want to know what how atheists reacted to atheists.
Why?
They wanted to know what, you know, I'm sure they have that data, but they wanted to know, they were studying theist reactions to atheism and anti-atheist reactions.
People don't like atheists. People don't like atheists because they serve as a grim reminder of death's finality.
It's very, very theist normative.
Yeah. People, I mean, atheists are people too, you guys.
Are Buddhists actually theists?
Some of them are. Not all of them, but
Buddha's
that's a good point. That's a good point. A lot of Buddhists are actually atheists. They should probably have taken them out or done
I think
some.
whenever they say talking to an atheist makes them think more about death, it makes them think more about like the article talks about finality of death. Not that they're going to be dead and with their loved ones, as you're pointing out. They're going to be dead and it's going to be dark. That's it.
Right.
And when you talk to an atheist, that's pretty much what they say is going to happen to you, and that goes against what they've grown up with, and they can't handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I can't handle it. To be perfectly honest.
No. I mean,
It'd be so nice, like you say, just to walk around. And one thing I do ask people who come to my door and try to persuade me, I say, what if when you're in heaven and you've been there and you're there with your daughter or son and you don't feel any different about them when Ted Bundy walks up, just because right before he died, he took Jesus as his savior and he's there in heaven, but you have no more love for him or for your children as you do for Ted Bundy or Adolf Hitler or whoever, because in heaven, everyone's happy for
Yeah.
thousands and
And
thousands. and
Gross.
thousands.
I really feel like Christians have really painted themselves into a corner because on the one hand they're trying to include everyone by saying it doesn't matter what you've done, how horrible a human being you are. If you just ask for forgiveness, you can have it. But then you have to let in Hitler. And then
You gotta
Yeah.
let everyone.
Dahmer.
Right.
And
Yeah.
So, the whole fairness thing goes right out the door. And I feel like that's a place where I have effectively attacked that point on, which is this is not ultimately fair.
Yeah, I had a family member who basically said, like, we want to be with you in heaven. And I was like, well, if God is keeping me out because I don't believe in Jesus, then it's not a place I want to go
Right.
because I'm already a good person.
Right.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say about this, I keep trying to think of a way to effectively troll people with this information. And I haven't thought of anything brilliant. So if anyone out there has any way of, if you know that Christians hate us because they're going to die, what is the best way we can troll them? God@atheistairwaves.com. Send me an email. The only thing I've got is I've been thinking about when the nasty Christians come up to our table at Art Walk is just saying, instead of saying goodbye, saying, you're going to die. You're going to be dead someday.
None of this will have ever mattered.
Right.
That's right.
You're going to be dead. Okay, so let's move on. Pastor Tony Waller was the youth pastor at First Assembly of God Church in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Yeehaw.
God damn it, Arkansas.
Pastor Tony.
He was the youth pastor because this week the 39-year-old Christian's wife was looking for a file on the laptop they share when she noticed a folder she didn't recognize. Now, in my mind, I imagine that the folder was named something like totally not child porn
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Don't click on this. That's
Super boring stuff that no one wants to look at.
exactly.
Pictures of grandma.
Grandma's vagina. Okay, sorry. Anyway,
Poor grandma.
that's funny because it totally was kid porn. It was filled with
I'm shocked.
tens of thousands of images of what they say were scantily clad or naked prepubescent girls. See, because they're
No, only pubescent, not prepubescent.
no, it said prepubescent. I'm
It
pretty
does
sure.
here quoted thousands of images of prepubescent girls either completely nude or scantily clad.
Prepubescent.
Well, the article that I'm looking at says
And you're looking at a bad article.
that's like your opinion, man.
So his wife goes to Pastor Waller and says,
Pastor Waller, what is this?
Waller, I hardly know her. And she says, so, hon, what's up with all the kiddie porn? And, like you do, Pastor Waller said,
Can we role play this? Pastor Waller, dear, I seem to have stumbled across an unmarked folder full of scantily clad or naked pubescent and prepubescent girls. Can you tell me about that, dear?
I know nothing about that. You're crazy. There's something wrong with you. I don't know why. Why did you download that?
Are you
No,
sure you
okay,
don't
so-
have a 20-year-old child porn addiction that you never told me about?
So this is the thing, like right here, I feel like we've uncovered something because there's like a normal reaction to being caught with tens of thousands of images of prepubescent girls, which is, I don't know what you're talking about. And then there's what Pastor Waller did, which was, I got a problem and I've been doing this for 20 years. That's why I have tens of thousands of them.
Like, this means that he has, like, transferred files between computers, because no computer lasts 20 years.
Yes,
He's been like, oh, gotta take my kids.
It's like the old dot
Floppy,
matrix
floppy,
printout.
floppy. Can you
Not
imagine?
for long.
Like, I have tried.
And by the way, if you're going to
welcome,
be
man.
transferring that much data around, why aren't you keeping it on an external hard drive, storing it on
Seriously.
cloud,
Okay,
like...
okay, I'm going to give some advice to our pedophile listeners. Dropbox. Save it online.
You should have said that like Al Gore. Dropbox.
The Dropbox.
He did a thumbs up on that one.
I did a little Bill Clinton on that.
Yeah.
Okay. But, I mean, here's the other thing is, like, why are you saving it? I mean, it's the internet. You can just go find more. So,
And if you have tens of thousands, you can't possibly have like some favorites out of that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, he's just, that's weird behavior.
Well, he's
I don't-
pathological.
Okay, wait. Because I don't want to devolve our show into advice for
This
pedophiles.
is how not to be a child porn addict. Be more secretive.
Right.
Be
about
less
your-
crazy and fucked up generally. Make better decisions about how you consume child porn.
And never admit to anything. Why are you
Yeah.
admitting to things?
Yeah,
Okay.
like remember who was it? Pete Townsend was caught with a bunch of child porn on his computer several years ago, and he was like, "It was research for a
doing a
song
book."
that I was writing or something,"
Yeah.
and everybody was kind of like,
Right.
"All right."
But
He got
he
off.
got off. Well,
Oh.
yeah, no. That was you. You said that. I didn't say that.
You both said that at
Okay.
the same time, actually.
I've spent
Okay.
too long here.
So she called the police and turned him in, which
Good
why
for
it's-
her.
It's seriously. I mean, that can't be an easy thing to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure that's what I would do, but you know,
You wouldn't turn him
She
in.
has to.
You wouldn't turn in the guy who's
I know in-
addicted to child porn.
I know in Texas you have to.
I don't gotta do nothing. But no. But I'm just saying, if it's someone I love, and I know they have a problem. First of all, I might turn them in, but I would let them get rid of the evidence first, so they don't spend 20 years in jail.
Some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No,
I guess I'm alone
I
on
don't
this.
love anybody enough to be like, no, you have a problem with naked children
But
that get you
is
off.
is the
so
Is the justice system the best way to solve your problem with that? I mean, so let me back up because, obviously this guy's a youth pastor. I mean, and he's been a
creepy as fuck.
a youth pastor at this church for 16 years.
Creepy as
Yes,
fuck.
but
So okay, I hear what you're saying, or I feel where you're going, and
I'm trying to be real.
right. So okay, the guy fucking deserves some hardcore punishment and help, right?
Yeah.
But you're trying to come at it from the perspective of a loved one, right?
I'm trying to think, because I think if it were anyone else, if I was just walking through, it's like, oh no, I'm going to nail you to the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to say, you know, I have feelings for this person.
Right. What if it was your brother or whatever?
No, fuck that guy. It would have to be someone I really like.
But I mean, let's look at church's history with this sort of thing. They
Yeah,
would
totally.
undoubtedly, put him in some, Christ-centered therapy sort of bullshit.
Yeah.
And it would do nothing.
No, I agree with that. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I would. I
It's
can't
ha-
tell.
it's hard.
Is it really that cut and dry? Is there no one in your life that you would even pause?
No.
Really?
I'm
Okay.
very cut and dry.
Okay.
I'm like, hey, you're my friend today. Oh, you fucked me over. Yeah, you're going down. Yeah.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I mean, I do give her a lot of credit for doing it. I really do, because I mean,
Yeah.
that can't be an easy thing to do.
Well, but maybe he's a jerk.
That could be too.
You know, I mean, maybe this was like the last straw, or maybe it's like her final freedom. Like, oh my God, I can finally get rid of this guy. Maybe she knew about it or had a sense, for a long time and could never find a way to stop him.
But then
I
also
mean,
to
who
keep-
knows?
You're looking at him as being the person or victim of the system.
Right.
How about looking at
The children.
the end user, the consumer promotes the supply or the demand, which
Oh, right.
creates a supply, which
Sure.
creates a demand, which requires a supply.
Yeah.
Now there's other people out there saying, hey, we can make money off this
Yeah,
stuff.
no, and there's
So,
no doubt there
you
are
gotta stop.
victims. There are victims. Whether he was a youth pastor for 16 years at this church. And the church is saying, oh, there's like no way. This doesn't have anything to do with what he was doing with us. It's like, oh, really.
No, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, he just gets, sexually excited by children. But
Right.
being a youth pastor is totally not at all related to
Right.
that.
So I don't believe for a minute that he wasn't using his position in some way. And I don't believe that for a second. In fact, I have audio from he did a promo for his church last November, I think October, November. Let me play it real quick just so that this is what this guy's job was.
Hey guys, it's Pastor Tony from JFA, and I wanted to invite you and your family to come and be a part of Kids Fest. We're going to have a great day, a lot of fun, free food, inflatables, games for your kids.
Oh my God.
Inflatables.
Games for your kids.
Okay, I want to say one thing before we get off of this, because...
We want to do what?
Right. Because this is... Okay, the idea that people have kinks that are immoral or socially unacceptable is like, that's like an established fact, right?
Sure.
You cannot always choose your kinks. Sometimes you can choose to try to control them,
Sure.
right? And so the guy says he has a problem, and I believe that he probably does. And child pornography is never okay under any circumstances, but I want to at least acknowledge that he may have been turning to porn on his computer as a way to keep himself from
acting.
molesting little girls or boys or whatever. So I just want to put that out there. I haven't heard anything to the contrary of that. And you would think that something would come out.
Sure. All joking aside, and I'm not even sure I'm entirely joking, but yeah, there's no evidence that he actually molested anyone. To Vance's point, though, consuming child porn creates a
victims.
demand,
Absolutely.
which creates victims. So that's not okay. But I've also been reading a lot lately, and there's been a lot of really, really hardcore debate about, I think it started with a psychologist who said pedophilia is natural. There is a certain subset, it's probably less than 1% of the population, who are pedophiles naturally.
What does naturally mean?
It means it's part of their
predilection.
Right. So they are born that way.
Like a sexual orientation?
Yeah.
Okay.
So and she says that's a natural sexual orientation, and that we need to be more understanding of that while also realizing anyone who acts on that shit needs to be dealt with harshly.
That sounds like it seems very slippery slope-ish to me, because that sounds like saying you can't help that you are gay, but come over here and I'm going to help you pray it away.
Except that it's not. It's not. Because, I think it's equivalent. But the only difference is that members of your own gender can consent to sex with you.
Of course.
And children cannot. Ever.
No.
There is no time at which a child can consent to sex with you. But if you are, just like a gay person is, and this is, I hate that we're even having this conversation, really, but but just like a gay person is genetically and environmentally predisposed to be attracted to members of their own sex, if that is true for pedophiles, that they are genetically and environmentally predisposed to be attracted to underage children, I think that demonizing them is, I have to agree with the psychologist that is not
the right way to go about it. Yeah, no, I'm with you, because
at the same time understanding that there is absolutely no correlation between a consensual relationship between two same gender adults and an adult and a child. So
Right.
so I think that understanding and trying to help people who have this affliction, this genetic problem is probably a good thing, while at the same time not tolerating actual action, whether that is actual physical contact or consumption of, pornography, because that creates victims.
Right. I totally agree with that part of it. I'm just, and maybe we can just move on from this, because I am having trouble with the idea of pedophilia as we'll call it a sexual orientation or whatever, because I'm thinking of other things that were once sort of pathologized that are now accepted as part of human nature,
Right.
like homosexuality, like gender dysphoria, transgender identity, which used to be called gender identity disorder, and it's no longer a disorder, right? It's a order or something. So, okay, if this is something that a person is born with that may need some sort of therapy, as in like a therapeutic solution, what would be that solution? I mean, for gender dysphoria, it is gender reassignment. There's not a solution for the pains of homosexuality. It's go be gay and happy.
Right. That is the actual solution.
I mean, there's no it's not pathologized, I guess I should say. So what would be the solution for Pastor Tony? If it's not, I mean, obviously it's not consume
what
porn.
he's doing is unacceptable.
Yes.
And so it has to stop. And I'm not going to judge his wife, because she knows best how to make him stop. And if that's 20 years in jail, that's what it takes. And I think that's totally fine. Ustreamer77021 in the chat room says, you want people to be out and seeking help rather than hiding and trying to deal with the condition on their own and be unsupervised. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That even the acknowledgement that this is who I am, will land you in prison. It removes the possibility of help. It removes the possibility of having that person not have victims.
Right.
And that's really all I care about, is I don't want that person to have victims. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a good point. I don't know.
So, I mean, God, what a tricky kind of situation to be in the pro-pedophile, like normalized pedophilia world or perspective, like let's reduce the stigma so that people can be out as pedos, so that they don't.
I know.
I mean, weird. I feel very uncomfortable right now.
But I think this is a worthwhile conversation to be having, because it makes you feel so disgusting. Because it makes you feel awful is why. Because I mean, most people are not going to have this conversation. Most people are going to be like, string him up by his. And not just his, let's be honest, there are women who are pedophiles as well. I would venture to say legitimately that more men are pedophiles than women, but string them up by their ovaries or their testicles, whatever.
How about their labia? I bet that would really hurt.
You know what? Like, stringing them up by their ovaries doesn't feel as bad to me. It would be probably worse, but it feels better to say ovaries than labia.
Because nobody likes to say labia.
Let's
You're more uncomfortable with this saying labia than the whole hooray pedophiles conversation we just had?
Let me tell you what my problem is that I watched this movie. I don't even know what the movie is, but like it had Native Americans, and they were like hooking themselves. Like they put hooks through their things and their chest,
stuff.
and they're suspending themselves. Yeah, it's like, and I was just thinking about that with labia, and that was like freaking me out.
That's totally exactly what I was thinking. And those big like C hooks with the bolt that goes
We're moving on. This is the end of this conversation. Luz has destroyed me. Oh, you motherfucker.
See what
Beer
happens.
No,
foul.
I totally caught it. It's
Beer
ginger
foul.
beer. It's ginger beer, you guys.
See what happens when you laugh about labia?
I know.
And show title.
All
All
right.
right, let's move on.
Please help us move on,
All
Amanda.
right. Speaking of labia, in a shocking and unpredictable turn of events, abstinence-only education in Texas has led to a chlamydia outbreak. So in addition to one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in the nation, we now have a chlamydia outbreak.
Woohoo!
Woo, go Texas! So thank goodness that the Texas Ledge is diverting $3 million in funds from HIV prevention to abstinence-only education this session.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, because Texas also has the third highest HIV infection rate in the country. Woo!
I did not know that, but that's
You're
awesome.
welcome. These are
Yeah.
the kinds of things that I know. So here's the greatest thing. Crane Independent School District Superintendent Jim Rummage gave this quote: "We do have an abstinence curriculum, and that's evidently ain't working."
No.
I swear to God, it's quoted.
What's his name?
Jim Rummage. Rumage.
Oh, that's not as Texasy as I wanted it to
Sorry,
be.
man. But yeah, that is the sort of grammar and insight that you can expect from the superintendent of Crane ISD. So good news, chlamydia is curable. Bad news, it can damage women's reproductive systems, complicating future pregnancies, especially if treatment is delayed, say because everyone in town knows there's a chlamydia outbreak and you don't want to be branded a slut.
Or chlamydia often has no symptoms.
Yes,
So
that too.
you can have chlamydia and not know it for a long time.
And you can
Yeah.
pass that shit around.
Yes,
Yep.
you can.
That is the sort of grammar and insight that you can expect.
God
Oh my
damn it,
God.
Vince. You're like the
Vance
worst.
sucks!
You're the worst person on the
So
planet.
much for no mistakes. You shouldn't have said that. to
We
begin
would
with.
never ever expect you
I'm
to
trying
not
to
make
cough
this
this whole time.
mistakes.
Okay, so my husband recently informed me that, and he's fucking 35 years old. I don't know how he knows this, but apparently all the kids these days all get chlamydia now because
Sure.
From him?
yeah, right? No, he says it's related to the fact that because everyone gets vaccinated against
HPV.
chickenpox. And I guess the viruses are somehow related in some way. So if you're not exposed to wild chickenpox, you're more.
Wild chicken pox. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, if you don't if
Yeah.
you don't catch chickenpox like naturally or whatever,
I've
you
never heard
don't
this.
Never
get
heard
these
that at all.
antibodies that protect you against chlamydia.
That doesn't sound like a
think
thing to
so.
me. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he made it up, but I'm like, why do you care whether the kids these days have
Oh,
chlamydia?
I'll tell you
or
why he
not?
cares.
I mean, I know why he cares because I fucking know the guy.
Well, hold on just a second, because like we have a hum, and there's apparently no reason for it. Okay. The other thing for me about this story is that I assure you that I was thinking about sex before I had sex ed for the first time in 7th grade. I was thinking about girl bits.
Labia and whatnot.
Not with the hooks, but and even thinking about the better sex education that I had at my freshman year of high school, that was really more intellectual than it was addressing anything that I was feeling as a young teen.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, okay, so I feel really awful saying this right after we just had this pedophilia conversation.
Oh, God.
Yeah, people are going to have to leave the room now. But I feel like I would advocate for, and I would have appreciated, a mechanics of sex class
Right.
early on rather than having to figure that shit out by myself. Because like I had eventually pretty good sex education from an intellectual standpoint. Like I knew the parts fit together and how, you know, you got certain diseases and how you avoided those diseases. But I really didn't understand sexuality. And I learned that on my own, which seems stupid because as a species, we've been doing that as long as we've been a species.
Why did that seem stupid to you? Oh, okay.
It seems stupid that I have to figure that out by
I think
myself.
it seems stupid that kids don't figure it out sooner.
Well, it's the prevailing thought in Texas and places where abstinence-only education is taught is that if you tell them anything about sex, it will make them want to have sex.
Okay, so like in the olden days when we lived in these tiny houses and everybody slept in the same room, you learned about sex when you were this big because your mom and dad did it in the bed next to you, right? And so that doesn't happen anymore, and kids don't bathe together anymore, and nobody sees anybody naked ever.
Except on Cinemax.
Yeah, and maybe your parents will let you stay up later than them, and then you can turn on Cinemax after they go to bed.
That's probably where I learned most of my mechanics of sex is from Cinemax, HBO, that kind of thing. I mean, because I grew up pre-internet.
Yeah, so it seems nuts to me. Like, I know if my parents had sat me down and gone like, hey man, so like, know what a boner is or whatever, I would like, no. But it seems like our culture is missing the point where kids can figure that out in a safe place where they're not having sex with each other necessarily, but they're like...
Who are they having sex with?
Themselves, maybe?
Pastor Waller?
Oh, poor kids.
Yeah, there was...
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to keep them separated so much.
But yeah, the thought is that if you tell them anything, then they just... And it's like, have you ever met like a 13-year-old boy?
Yeah.
Like there was a quote on Buffy that was like my favorite thing in the world. And I know, okay, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, fuck you.
It's awesome. No, I love Buffy.
But
we're all
yeah.
with you right now.
Like Xander at one point, like Cordelia was like, "Hey, are you thinking about sex like right now?" And he's like, "Are you kidding? I'm a 16-year-old boy. Looking at linoleum makes me want to have sex. Yes, I'm thinking about sex right now." And it was just like, yes, that's very honest. You don't need to be told about sex to be thinking, "Yay, sex!"
Right.
But then there are people in the Texas legislature who will literally say, like, "Oh, we had a boy who went to my church, and he went to Planned Parenthood and got the sex ed talk, and it made him so horny that they couldn't even get the condom on in the car."
Oh my god.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've
Yeah.
heard. I forget who that was, but I've heard that quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was gonna have sex in the car.
Yeah. Outside the Planned Parenthood, apparently.
Like you do.
Yeah, because,
That's
you know,
that's where I go for sex.
nothing sexier than hearing about sexually transmitted diseases and how to use a condom and birth control pills and...
Ugh.
Yeah. I like it when they try to say that anatomically correct diagrams are pornography. That's one of my favorite things, too.
I'm gonna say, as a former teenage boy,
You're like, anything can be porn if you try hard enough.
that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't know. I just feel like we could be doing a lot better than even just medically accurate sex education. I think that could be better for everyone's
Like what?
sexuality.
What are you envisioning?
Well, I'm just saying that we produce a lot of young boys who have no idea what to do with a girl. And we produce a lot of young girls who have no idea how their bodies work. And so the boys don't know, the girls don't know, and it's a roll of the dice whether anyone's going to actually figure it out.
Totally.
And-
But okay.
Tens of thousands of years we've been doing this stuff. We should be fucking experts. We should all be Einstein at
yeah,
sex.
because we're in the fucking dark ages of sex right now. You know.
Oh, not even. This is like the fucking Renaissance right now.
The Renaissance of sex.
No, I mean it's been way better in the past. You know, I think. I mean, I don't fucking
Like
know. I'm not
when?
a historical scholar or whatever, but I mean,
I can't think of a single time that has been more open about sexuality than right now, and that scares the shit out of me.
I think it's more public maybe, but I think it's probably a lot more repressed than it has been in the past.
We've been more repressed in the past.
I read an absurd amount of history, and
Yes, she does.
the number of royal couples who went childless for like a decade after their wedding because nobody thought to tell them, "Hey, when you get married, this is what you do to make a child."
We're not.
It was like,
Most of the world's population are not royal European couples, though.
it's true.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
But I've heard many anecdotes exactly like that of just normal couples who went to fertility treatments and they did not know how to have sex. They've been married for a long time and they just didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to end this conversation with a quote from the chat room. Student Ghetto says that ass to mouth is not okay. And so I think we should just end this conversation on some good advice.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for the Clerks 2 quote. Chat room.
Corpus Christi Atheist meets every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. This weekend we'll be meeting at B&J's Pizza just east of Airline on SPID. If you don't know where that is, please visit ccatheist.com for a list of our public events. If you're interested in connecting with our affiliates, visit southtexascor.com to connect with any of our sister organizations from here all the way down to Mexico. All right. So I don't know how this is going to go, but tonight we're going to debut a new segment that I'm tentatively calling 10 Minutes of Poe. Either it's going to be fun and a regular thing, or it's going to be totally disastrous. I'm going to edit it out, and only you guys in the chat room and on YouTube will ever hear it.
Sounds far more likely.
Yeah. So the idea is that we're going to spend more or less about 10 minutes. I'm going to pretend to be a Christian, and you guys try and beat the crap out of me. You guys
What
ready for
weapons
this?
do I get?
Anything you want.
Fossilized monkey.
All right, so I'm going to start in a weird place. So, yes or no? I want only yes or no. Do you guys believe that some things are moral and some things are immoral? Luz, you go first. Yes or no?
It's relative.
Yes or no? So, yes or no?
No.
No.
Yes.
Vance?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to ignore you for a second, Luz. Because you're the immoral heathen over here. So both of you must...
Chaotic neutral.
That is, like, seriously, that is my go-to D&D alignment. No kidding. You two, though, must then obviously believe in a God, because for something to be moral or immoral, you must have an objective standard by which to measure that. Otherwise, you're just making it up, right?
No.
Why not?
Why can't I decide for myself what is moral and what is not moral?
Because you're just making that up. By what standard do you call something moral? If there is no lawgiver, if there's not someone who has set up this system, then why isn't raping children just as good as not raping children?
Because it's wrong, no matter who says so.
Because it's not what the children want or like.
But who cares? There's no objective standard. Why do you even care?
Because I value people, not because they are a product of a god, but because they are people.
So you're presupposing that people are valuable in some way. And if you're going to presuppose that, why wouldn't you just presuppose that there's a God who has commanded you not to do that?
How does that follow logically at all?
Right. I would presuppose that people are valuable because I is one.
I is special. I is important.
And I get that, because as human beings, we are imperfect and selfish. And so I get that why you would think that. But I think there is a higher moral calling.
The moral calling I would use would be, would I want that done to me? And if I don't
Yes.
want things done to me, regardless of, I mean, there doesn't have to be a God for me to decide that.
But yes, there does, because you know why? Because
No.
God has imprinted that on your soul, and that is why, despite the fact that you want to rebel against His word, you you recognize it, and deep down you believe there's a God.
Okay.
You are using.
All right. Let's say God printed it on my soul.
Okay.
Which God?
My God.
Your God?
Well,
Yes.
you're God.
Where did you grow up?
Huh? Catholic. I was
You grew up.
raised
I didn't grow
Catholic.
up Catholic.
Okay, but that's unfortunate for you. But but salvation is still open to you, regardless of who you were born to or what choices you've made in the past. God is still open to you. God has imprinted His word on your heart, and that is why you are.
That's why I think I'm important.
No, that's why you accept the golden rule, because that is God's law, and so. You're sitting here right now and you accept that because that has been written onto your heart by God.
I don't know where to start. I don't accept that. But
And that's because of human hubris
That's
that you
kind of
reject that.
Well, you're presupposing
Yes.
that
Yes,
God
I'm a
wrote
Christian.
that on our heart. And of course, we could go into the whole idea of which God, and then you're saying the Catholic God. Then we talk about how would you know?
Well, because I have had experiences that have confirmed for me that is the God who acts on my behalf, who he so loved the earth that he gave his only begotten son, and my prayers have consistently been answered.
Well, he so loved the world.
This is making everyone feel really dirty.
So
Yeah, we talked about this. My wife and I talked about this before I left the house about me being a militant atheist. And I'm like, I'm not. I don't attack people.
Mm-hmm.
But if I did talk to a Christian, and I'm going to assume that you're being one right now, I'd have a hard time arguing with you, militantly or getting angry with you. But I would go into more questions. And of course, I'm letting you control the conversation right
I know.
now.
I'm like,
asking
come on, guys, get on the offense here. You have to be like, look.
Because I thought we were going to beat you up.
I know.
It's not working that way, is
He
it?
won't let you.
The chat room is calling for me to be punched in the face. So
Always a good call with Ferris.
So I haven't been to these the art walk thingies that you guys are doing, but I'm very I think it's awesome and fascinating that you're doing it. And I think I'm imagining that you spend a lot of time going like, hey, just for a second, imagine that there is no God. Would you still have the same moral compass that you have now? Because I think
said that.
Right? And I think that's a really, really good question to ask. So, fake Christian, I ask you from that perspective, if you say that God is what gives absolute moral authority, then pretend that there is no God. You as a good person, would you keep the same?
What is good in the absence of God? What is good? I would kill you right now if it was in my best interest.
Really?
Yes.
That hurts my feelings.
I don't care because if there's no God, there is no moral standard, and so why would I care about your feelings?
Well, that's
And
why.
and I just want to take this moment to say this is something that was actually said to me at our walk.
I know, but I mean,
why
can
we're-
you look at a person and say but really deep down in the depths of your heart and being, do you really believe that you could, not whether you would or not, but even could you do something so horrendous?
So let me just say that, me personally, I'm going to step out of character now, and we'll just abandon that character. But me personally, no. But I talked to this guy at Art Walk. We played it on this show, and he said he would mow down everyone at Art Walk. He would take a gun and kill everyone if it was in his best interest.
Did you believe
If it
him?
was- no.
If it was in
No.
his best
No.
interest.
That's the scorched earth approach.
Yeah.
I mean, he's saying if it's not true, then you better look out because it's
Fucking-
all
This is-
coming down, and I'm going to make sure it
Sure.
all comes down.
But this isn't like a one-time thing. When I was in Austin at the secular convention, I was the Saturday night. I sat at the bar, and a couple sat next to me, and the guy was a theist, and I said, well, yeah, but we were talking about morality, and I said, but if there was no God, would you just kill people? And he's like, yeah, I would kill you right now. And so I mean,
So okay, so that's lawful evil alignment, right? I mean, if you want to think about it like that,
Want to get all D&D
I find
about
it very useful to think about the people in terms of alignments, right? And I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I don't either.
Right? I think that so many people wish that they were evil and they're not, and they can hide behind this cloak of like, well, there's like laws and rules and shit, whether it's like Christianity or just the laws of man or whatever, that allow, you know, it's like, hold me back, man, hold me back. You know, it's that same kind of machismo, like braggadocio shit, you know, where people are like, God totally exists because if he didn't, I would be such a fucking badass.
Yeah.
You guys would all be dead. Like,
No, I agree with you. I think that, okay, God doesn't exist, and they don't kill me in the absence of that God. And so I think it's total bullshit. But I think it's a good argument for them to make, which is why they so consistently do it.
yeah, but that's why you have to continue challenging it. You can't just be like, well, if that's what you say, whatever. Like, no, I don't believe you. Well, it's the same as the person that says you really do have God in your heart. You just haven't even accepted it yet. Yeah. You know, you flip it around and say God is not the one that's making you do good shit. You're actually a good person.
Well, I had a Jehovah's Witness come to my door and we spoke for an hour.
I'm so sorry.
Well, he came back. I told him come back because I asked him some questions he couldn't answer. I said come back anytime. And he came back the next day and we talked.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
We talked a while, but he brought this up and I asked him. He goes, "This is what we were taught. This is what we believe." And I said, "Well, what about the people over that don't believe that? They came up with the same ideas that murder's not good." And he goes, he looks at his Bible and he goes, "Well, I guess they got that one right." I got it all recorded.
That's amazing. You have to send me that file.
But the point is what I would ask you then is I'd ask you, well, where do you get this idea that it's imprinted on my heart? You'd say the Bible, and then I would start directing the conversation to the Bible, and how do you know that's real?
That's the way to do it. Right. I think that directing it to epistemology and how do you know, that's where, because here's the thing that I've learned talking to Christians and pretending to be a Christian is that if you let them retreat, if you make it a conversation about the Bible, about scripture, about what it says, scripture can say fucking anything. You can make it say anything and you will never win that fight. So it has to always be about how do you know? And they can't answer that question because they have no good reason for knowing.
Well, there are also some very condemning scriptures too. I mean, you can, like, some people bring up slavery and they go quote after quote out of the Bible where God promotes slavery and tells you how much this person costs and how much this person costs straight from God. Sorry, I'm fighting a cough. That's why I sound like I'm.
You're good.
And then you can ask them, is slavery moral or not moral? And they say it's immoral. And I'm like, okay, well, open up the Bible here. Here's your God describing it. Yep. Now what do you think? Well, that's Old Testament. So you don't believe any of the Old Testament? Well, you just keep going with them. And eventually, if you stick with them long enough, they'll say, well, it's up for interpretation. Anybody believe whatever they want. And because people do good things and bad things in other countries and other religions, does that mean it's written on their heart by their God?
I've had really good success nailing people down with that because they want to dismiss the Old Testament as that's just the Old Testament. That's
Mosaic
the way
law.
it is.
They say that's Mosaic law.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't apply anymore. Well, you know what? I've had good success at telling them, okay, it doesn't apply anymore, but you worship a God who at one time thought that raping a woman, really the penalty should be a fine or marrying her. You worship a God who thought at one time that owning people was okay. And then they'll say something like, oh, but slavery wasn't that bad. No. You think that owning people was okay. There are Old Testament prescriptions to kill infants. And so your pro-life self, think that sometimes it is moral to kill an infant. And I posted something in the Secret Society that Corpus Christi Atheist has, a conversation I had with a theist about this. And I said, this is what your Bible says. How do you justify killing infants? And he said, well, what would you do if your daughter came up and started kicking your ass? I'm like, not kill her?
Weirdly?
She's a child. I don't I'm much larger than she is.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be embarrassing? God.
Was that guy a
My
policeman?
daughter kicked my ass.
Was he a cop?
Yeah. So, I mean, these are the kinds of absurd lengths they will go if you try to nail them down. And once they go absurd, then you've won. So, I don't know.
That's true. And they do go absurd.
Yeah.
They start making.
It was that last lady at Art Walk the other night who was just like, but what do you believe?
Right.
I was like, I thought about this a lot over the last couple weeks. I'm just like, what do I believe? I believe there's no God. I believe that humans have value because they're people.
Yeah.
Because people are valuable.
That's right.
I would have been like, I believe you can mind your own fucking business.
We were kind of there to talk to them. So.
Yeah, that was kind of our gig.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess that's why I don't go.
Or wear stickers that say "Ask an Atheist." They say "Ask an Atheist." Well, mind your own
Go
business.
mind your fucking business. I talked to her after she talked to you, and I said, I don't even know what that means. What do you mean? What do I believe? What does that?
Yeah.
What does it even freaking mean? Because I think they mean, what kind of supernatural things do you believe in? It's like none.
None supernatural things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you remember that there was like this NPR thing, like a little soundbite thingy that they would do? I don't know, a couple years ago called "This I Believe." Do you remember this? And like people would send in like a little, like a chicken soup for the whatever kind of quote. I believe that my purpose on earth is to make NPR sound bites or whatever.
You've got a really good NPR voice right now, man.
Sweaty balls.
Everyone loves my sweaty balls.
Yeah. So anyway, this idea of like, what do you believe? What I'm saying is this idea of what do you believe is somehow it's part of our culture. And I don't think people think twice about what the fuck does that mean, because
Right.
I can tell you what I don't believe. I can tell you what I think is bullshit. And I can tell you generally like, yeah, golden rule, good idea.
Not original to Jesus in any way, but yeah,
right?
Generally good idea.
Humans are inherently valuable based on the fact that they're humans, like, okay, cool. Like, be nice to people, and protect the people that you love. There's shit that you believe, but what do you believe is like kind of it's like a hard.
It's nothing.
But
It's another
is that
question.
something you believe, or is that something you know?
Well,
'cause
I mean,
I know that people are good. I mean, look
but
at the
that's
universe.
like your
We're the only
opinion,
ones.
man.
Yeah.
Like seriously.
It is. You're right. It is my
The
opinion.
dude has made 2 appearances in this show.
It's just my favorite thing to say because it's. I mean, it's.
Just your opinion, man.
It is.
All right, let me close out this conversation with a comment from the chat room. Kill Illuminati in the chat room says it shouldn't be what do you believe, it should be what do you know.
Bam.
Boom. That's it. That is exactly right. It doesn't matter what you believe, it's what you know and how you know it. That's it. I'm going to throw it over to you, Amanda. You want to talk about a faith healer?
Faith healer, yes. So, faith healer Adam Miller claims to be able to cure any stage of cancer, among other things, including, like AIDS and pretty much everything. Yeah, with the sort of woo
Chronic
mysticism.
halitosis.
Anything.
No, not that.
No one can cure that. Not even God.
With the sort of woo mysticism that Dr. Oz could only hope to achieve. After atheist blogger Stephanie Guttormson called him out on his shit in video form on YouTube. He is now suing for things that don't really sound against the law as far as I'm concerned.
She was mean to me.
Pretty
and I
much.
don't like it.
It pretty much is. It's like 4-year-old at daycare being like, Miss, she took my toy and called me ugly.
I want $50,000.
Pretty much. Yeah, so the first is copyright infringement, because he says that she used too many of his clips. And
Were they
that,
copyrighted? I mean,
and that doesn't constitute fair use.
I don't know.
She
There
used-
is. I will say there are 2 licenses that YouTube lets you use: the standard YouTube license and like Creative Commons.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's got no leg to stand on in either of those. But
Yeah. So yeah, A, that she used too many of his clips, and B, that there was advertising at the end of her video. So he says that she was
no.
using him to make her money. Right. 2, she's hurting his business by criticizing him, which I think was the fucking point, you moron.
Yeah, mission accomplished.
Yeah. And then 3rd, defamation, because Guttormson made the statements with the intention to hold Mr. Miller up to ridicule and or hurt Mr. Miller's business and goodwill. Again, the fucking point.
this is exactly what should happen because
Yes.
he has no evidence for any of his claims. No medical or clinical or reasonable evidence. He has
Testimonials.
Yeah.
Billy
Once-
Bob says that he was cured of HIV.
And it's
He
funny-
died 3 days later from an unrelated condition.
Well, he points to his testimonies, and she refers to that as there's only 43 testimonies.
Yeah.
And then he says, I have a 97% cure rate, and on his website, 95%. Well, he threw the numbers. That's 400 to 800 people that he didn't fix.
But I mean, so he said he's had over his career, and I forget how long.
16,000.
16,000 plus people, and he has 40 people who have said that.
But if you take 97%, you take that 3%, that's more than the 43 that didn't get cured. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The numbers there are completely against him.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So yeah, poor Stephanie Guttormson now is having to raise funds to go to court against this crazy motherfucker, who is apparently well funded by the gullible. So I think we should definitely post a link to that on the Atheist Airwaves page.
Oh,
and be
for
like,
sure.
Hey, donate to Stephanie Guttormson.
Yeah.
Or we could just send Adam Miller to cure Texas's chlamydia. Just throwing that out there.
That's a really good idea, actually.
I can't stress enough how important it is that she's fighting this lawsuit. And we've talked in the past about the lawsuit against the Skeptic's Guide for the Universe. Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. And they're fighting theirs as well. And it's so important that people like this understand that not only can they not win these lawsuits, but they're going to end up on the hook for court costs, lawyers' fees, stuff like that. So they cannot silence the people who are speaking truth to their bullshit. And make no mistake, this guy he has no clinical or any evidence whatsoever other than did anyone watch his response video to her?
I didn't.
He trotted out a couple of people who were like supporters of his, and the first one is like, "Hello, my name is Karen, and I am a CEO of a company." It's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. Yeah.
You are a crackhead in a sport coat.
You're doing this for $20 in a blowjob. I don't know that for a fact. I'm suggesting that perhaps that.
Yeah, no, I mean, the point that the charlatans of all stripes should be, should be exposed for what they are, and that they should not be able to use the law and really the burden of what a lawsuit threatens, which is just the money that it costs to go to court, which is why Stephanie, what's her last name? Guttormson. These people who are well funded and can afford to threaten to sue those who are exposing their bullshit are just bullying the little guy, I don't know, whatever, the truth to power, right? So
you can't let that happen, or else they're just going to shut down the people who are speaking truth. The other really disgusting thing about this guy and his supporters is the level of transphobia that they have displayed.
Of course.
Stephanie Guttormson is a trans woman. She's been very open about that. She talks about her struggles very openly. I've been Facebook friends with her for a long time. She has spoken about it.
All of which has nothing to
do with any of this. Yeah. But he consistently calls her by, her legal name is Stephanie Guttormson. He consistently in public appearances and YouTube videos calls her Joel, which was her birth name. And he also calls her the so-called Stephanie. And I want to play a little bit from the video response he had to her initial video, where he trotted out some of his supporters to talk about it, because they are not even just as bad, but worse. So let me play a little bit of what they said.
She never once states herself what she is or who she is. She just wants to bash everything.
Yeah, she's not actually showing anything for the community either by saying, she was a god, or, anything like that. So she's not really being who she is. She's being, she's lying about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right?
Tell me what just happened.
Okay, so first of all, they said they don't tell what she is. It's like, she's not a what. She's a who. She's a person, okay, first of all. Like I said, she's also been very open about being a trans woman. And even if it were a secret, and it's not, what does it have? What bearing does it have to do on this subject at all?
So they're saying that she's not being
honest
by not saying like, "Hi, my name's Stephanie Guttormson. I used to be a man." Every time she gets up to speak.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying. Sure. And he's calling her the so-called Stephanie. And basically, they're trying to say, "Oh, she's not right, whatever," and that's why you should.
Not like she's crazy.
I don't know. That she's like a freak of some kind, and it's like this is the kind of shit that needs to stop.
So this dude is a faith healer, or is he a faith healer, or is he just a charlatan?
A little of both.
I mean, is he a religious? Is he a religious freak?
Yeah. He's a Deepak Chopra sucking dumbass.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, he's all about the flow and the energy and the
But he's not like all Jesus-y.
I haven't seen any Jesus crap, but anyway.
That's good.
I think probably his people and the food babe people like hang out together. Yeah.
They have lunch.
I'm sure.
And they eat like nothing together.
Yes.
Right. That's
They're
exactly
like,
what happens.
Have some raw nuts and vegetables and really center your chi while you're chewing.
Right. Let's all
These
swallow
nuts. Oh, yes, I did. Okay, so
white guy kills another joke.
So apparently there was also since he sued her, he's taken his old website down. He's tried to like clean up his act a little bit, but on his old website apparently he had a disclaimer, which is totally freaking amazing. So before he was suing people, apparently he was a little afraid of being sued by the people who's right, like, maybe I'm not gonna cure all the AIDS and all the cancer.
Just 97%.
Right. So his disclaimer, oh my God, said, quote, "Being in the presence of Adam Miller is for entertainment purposes only."
Oh, that's a guy with a high opinion of himself.
Yeah, that's a 98% guy right there. Like, this is just entertainment, y'all.
I think I dated that guy once. Are you not entertained?
Were you?
No.
Well, that's the disclaimer they have to use, like those phone calling and get your horoscope, or
Madame
fortune
Cleo,
teller,
and all that shit.
Yeah.
It's just entertainment, y'all. But he will totally cure you. But it's only entertainment.
Right. But you'll be entertained while you're cured.
That's right.
That's what we're saying.
He's curing your boredom.
It's like dinner theater, only you get cured and entertained.
Ta-da!
So shut up.
Just sit there and enjoy your cure, asshole.
All right, let's shut it down. Thank you for listening to Atheist Airwaves, sponsored by Corpus Christi Atheists and the South Texas Coalition of Reason. If you'd like to complain,
please complain.
Please. Or make a suggestion, please write to us at god@atheistairwaves.com. Thanks to Tombstone to Dead Man for our outro music. If you'd like to contribute to our show, Patreon.com/Atheist Airwaves. All of the post shows are going there now. It's amazing. You should go there. If you give us $1 an episode, you will get access to all that. Or you can come see us Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Central. We will see you next week, guys.
Bye.
Being a skeptic means so much more than being an atheist. And until you accept that, you won't relate to this. That cognitive dissonance that you experience is when there's things you claim to believe in but ain't living it. Most of you say you are the type to question everything until I hear the conspiracy theories that you echoing. And when I scrutinize the things you try to say are lies, expose your sources as suspect, I see your logic dies. Some still believe in pseudosciences, engage in special pleading when theists use the exact same reasoning. I've even seen atheists use arguments from ignorance and seem oppressed to tell me exactly just what the difference is. A skeptic without the ability to analyze is just as bad as the theist, cause he'll probably accept a lie. Just as long as it verifies all his biases, applying it to his knowledge pool, and then he's diving in. So I'm not saying that some conspiracies do not exist. I'm just saying that a lot of them are some bullshit. So I'ma call a spade no matter who asserts it. Nobody's perfect, and just one lie, then it's all perverted. Bring down the curtains on that sad display. The only ways to question yourself and all the things you say. Start the day, and maybe we can rise above and be examples for others to emulate, and that's the way we win this battle. So this is where I'm making my stand, and now regardless who don't like it or how they get mad, see why the rest of y'all capitulate and go with the plan. I'll be beating on this wall until I'm breaking my hand. So listen while I state official policy. No matter how I'm threatened with hell, then never silence me. I know that you don't see this as imperative, but